have a few thoughts to share. Dang it, guys. Okay, we have some time for questions and some discussion. So I'd like to hear from you your questions, and your thoughts, and your comments. So if you would please, exactly, come up to the mic.
Ilia, from reading your books and from what you have said today about God is love and so on, can you speak a little bit about your prayer life?
Prayer. Yeah.
Or is there such a thing? That's where I have come to.
Yeah.
So, if this God is drawing us always, and then,
Yes. So, yeah. So, prayer for me is that sort of deep relationship with God. I mean, in terms of that kind of deep dialogue. And I do try in my own prayer life, I do try to take at least 20 minutes to a half an hour each morning or so just sit quietly, in that kind of deep dialogue. But I find myself, quite honestly, throughout the entire day talking to God, So I have this kind of ongoing dialogue. It's not like something I do in the morning and then we're off to our own jobs, so to speak. God doing God's job and my job. And I guess, in a certain way, I think my own prayer life was deeply influenced by being a Carmelite. While that life had a lot of strictures to it, it had a great discipline of prayer. And I've always kept that discipline. At certain periods of the day, I will sort of consciously call to mind the presence of God, either by an invocation or by a prayer itself. And that would be like at 9 o'clock, at noon, at 3 o'clock. I'm always trying to, and I try to make the effort to recall that life of God, that life of Jesus in my own life. And that's sort of been built in, like even when I'm on the road or I'm, giving talks or I'm teaching, and that kind of built-in discipline has just become sort of wired, DNA'd into my life. And there are times when I sort of run out of time for prayer, quite honestly, but I will just, for a moment, just close my eyes and just stop everything and just try to focus on that deep inner presence of God. I truly am a firm believer of Merton's Le Point Vierge. There's a still point, at the center of our lives, and that God is deeply there. And if I cut myself off from that lifeline, the rest of life just sort of goes downhill. So I think, and I try to instill this in my undergraduates, that is our most important lifeline today. If nothing else, that is our wellspring of life in that deep, ongoing prayer, with divinity. So, yeah. Yes?
As I've listened to you, I have an ever deeper sense of the importance of open, vulnerable discernment as a way of life and way of being. I wondered if you could talk about that.
Yes, and that's a really important point. And I think we are saying here that with love at the heart of life, we are invited to trust, to surrender, to risk, and to become vulnerable in love. So there's no real love without embracing suffering as well. That's the risk of love. That things do go wrong, things fail. But when we believe and trust in that power of love, even if all should fail, there is still the future of life itself right in our midst. And therefore, we invite it to get up again and start anew. And I think sometimes we fear to do new things because we don't trust love enough. We talk about it, we have it as an intellectual idea, but that trust requires a deep letting go from within. And it is being able to let go and to flow even in the chaos of life. If things don't work out, it's okay. Something will work out because love is always up to something new. So it is a matter of vulnerability. That's a good word. And we are control freaks. We are. We control everything about our lives, right? How we're going to live, who's going to be our friends, where we're going to work, And so we keep talking about love, but in the meantime, we're like setting up all the boundaries and the categories for it. And we need to let all those go.
Very grateful to be here, and praise God for this opportunity to sit with you all and be with you. Sometimes it's a little difficult, like when you're on 495 at 5:30 in the afternoon. So it's a little difficult sometimes.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm not sitting in a prison cell, which would be a little more difficult, So I want to sing a song.
Oh.
She touches everything she changes, and everything she changes touches. She changes everything she touches, and everything she touches changes. She changes everything she touches, and everything she touches changes.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I don't have such a voice. Thank you so much. You've given us so much to think about. Tell me, what is the opinion of secular science about Teilhard's theories? I love this business of the omega point, Christogenesis. God is pulling us toward him. He needs us, if he's a he. But how is he... Teilhard died in 1955, so how is he perceived now in the secular science community, whatever that might be?
Yeah.
Is he a wifty crackpot? Was he considered that in the 50s, but we've learned so much more?
Right.
How is he perceived now by hardcore scientists?
Well, Stephen Gould, the evolutionary biologist, thought he was a fake and a fraud. Some have, perceived him as a crackpot. Some just think with this mystic, illusory, out in the desert way too long, too much sun. And then there are some scientists who are sort of waking up to him. Last year I got a paper from a group of scientists in Canada who actually were beginning to work out the physics of Teilhard's philosophy of love. Yeah, and the omega point. And with mathematics, I might add. I was like, oh my God. Here's the thing. Science is science, right? It doesn't have to. The only thing we're saying here, and Teilhard knew this very well. As a scientist, he was an excellent scientist. He was excellent at measuring. He was very consistent in keeping his data books, his conclusions were logical from the data. That's what science does. It measures, it draws inferences from the data, and it comes up with a description of what that event is or that, observation is based on that data. It cannot tell us things like why this exists or what it exists for. Those are questions, in a sense, outside the realm of science itself. And so Teilhard saw science and religion as two ways of knowing the one world. And we need both ways of knowing. As John Paul II reminded us, science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. We either wind up with false absolutes in religion, or we wind up with this kind of hubris, of self-sufficiency in science, where even today scientists are, I know from the point of quantum physics, sort of up against a wall. I mean, they keep grappling in the realms of mystery, but they will not call it mystery. They're just calling it maybe singularity or, the realm of theoretical physics, and we just need better mathematics to get to this. And so we need to bring these two disciplines into dialogue with one another, to fertilize one another for, you might say, the deepening of an understanding of the one world. As Teilhard said, it is a universe that is in formation. In other words, this creation process is you might say, a creative process of the whole. It's not like, scientists are being created and religion's being created. The whole is being created. And these two ways of knowing can deepen that formation of the whole insofar as we act toward that whole. So he was marginalized as a religious thinker. He was silenced by the church for his ideas on original sin. But the science in his own day was recognized. He was given the Mendel Award at Villanova University, I might add, in 1937. Yes, go Nova. So, so yes, he was considered a very good scientist, but a crackpot otherwise. Yeah, just incredible. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Now, the woman who came before me, she sang a chant about change. But here in Shalem, we also sing a chant that from Gerald Mays that says, changeless and calm, deep mystery, ever more deeply rooted in me. And I've been in the past couple of weeks, when I realized the dynamics of change, and I've been fed and nurtured in my spiritual life by this chant. And I say, okay, which one is it? Is it changeless and calm?
Change or changeless?
Changeless or change? Which one is it?
And
or is it both?
I don't think they're in opposition, truthfully. I think to be ever-changing is changeless. In other words, the ever-changing change is to be changeless. It's in the constant state of becoming that we are, the always state of becoming is the changelessness of change itself. So they're not change or not change. It is the openness of life to more life. That's the constancy of life itself. And I think that's what we're talking, I think that's what they would probably get it.
I feel impelled to say that the grand conception that you have given us today in your talk is exciting beyond expression in many ways, and certainly related thoughts have changed my life over the period of the work that my wife and I have done. But at the same time, there's a fearfulness that comes up within me, because we are people of narratives. The narrative of Jesus of Nazareth, the narrative of the teachings of the Buddha, and so forth and so on. And the thought of somehow leaving them behind to go into this conceptual cosmos that we see and we believe in over here, for sure, is shaking. And the only thing that I can imagine is that the call in this kind of universe is the risk of action.
Yeah.
One has to take action. Albert Einstein did not collect data. He sat in his room and pictures came to his mind, and he had some tools that he applied then. So anyway, this is where I am today.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, we are storytellers, right? So one thing we're saying here is we need a new story, right? The story that is more consistent with the world as that science can now best describe it.
Yeah.
But this story is not in any way contradictory to the gospel story, nor do we have to leave that story. We have to reread that story. This morning, Frank spoke about the exegesis of the cosmos. That is the most apt description of, in a sense, what we are doing here. I think we could read the whole Old and New Testament in light of evolution.
Yes.
But we haven't done that scriptural work yet. And so I would call for a new exegesis of Scripture in terms of evolution, the gospel of evolution. One more question. Okay.
Thank you, Ilia, for all that you're sharing with us. I wonder if you have any comments about Pope Francis and his year of mercy and how that's dovetailing into many of your ideas here.
Yeah. So, right, I think, I think Pope Francis is calling us to a new consciousness of interconnectivity. A connectivity to the earth, a connectivity to the poor. And so I think we can only have mercy when we have an awareness of others, of the suffering of others. But I think that, so there's no mercy without that deep connectivity and that deep consciousness of connectivity. So I think Pope Francis is very consonant with this new vision of evolution and God in evolution. However, we can't just impose, you can't just say, okay, let's have mercy, you know, it's wonderful. I mean, it's great. You know, we're like, oh, that's beautiful, let's have mercy, you know. But you have to feel, we have to feel the sufferings of the poor. We have to feel the sufferings of the earth in order to create a space within ourselves for that suffering to be embraced. I think that's the compassion that binds this unitive life. You know, that's the love at the heart of nature. Again, if I look to nature, there's a mercy written already into the codes of nature. There's an embrace, in a sense, of the other in its fragility. If you look at a single cell and you're to damage the nucleus of that cell, there's actually a cooperation that goes on. There's a sort of mercy within that living cell to compensate for the damage. We humans do not compensate for damage. We create the damage, and then we sort of wall ourselves off, you know, and self-protect ourselves because we don't have a consciousness of belonging to the whole. And there's no real mercy unless we have a consciousness of belonging to the whole together.
Thank you, Ilia. So I have a few announcements. We'll have book sales again during lunch, and again, you can sign up for online courses and the live stream recording from last night at a discount anytime this weekend. And there are evaluations that you received when you registered, so please fill out your evaluation sometime before you leave today. And for lunch, if you brought your lunch, you can eat anywhere around here. You can also go out for lunch. Be back at 1:30. We will start again at 1:30. And let's have a few moments of silence for our grace. And I'll ring the bell, and then I will say the words of a Danish hymn that keep coming to me as I listen to Ilia. And then we'll have a little silence, and I'll ring the bell again. That'll be our grace for lunch. That cause can neither be lost nor stayed, that takes the course of what God has made, and is not trusting in walls or towers, but quietly growing from seeds to flowers. Enjoy your lunch break and be back at 1:30. She's like
And I thought, we think of these more like this is but literally, these are the words of God. And to open to that dimension of earth awareness and the community of life, nature is so not in nature. So I just think
And I think seeing viruses would be, fire, or how dangerous they can be.
it's terrible to be afraid of flying out of grass. The open jaws of a grizzly bear is one thing, but to fly out of grass and meadows. Well, this is wonderful. I'm glad you're all working together on this. It's so important. It's so exciting to watch people, and I've had that experience with spiritual formation, just watch the strength and the trust deepen so that new courage comes. But I thought yesterday, I can go establish that some of these things, but she talked about that's what it is. Hard to let go of those, hard to let go of those, and they reinforce. They reinforce.
No, read